You guys, my mom beat cancer. She can't beat Goku, though. Anime fandoms. Truly one of the most beautiful aspects of anime. Except when they're not. Anime is a huge medium, so of course it's going to attract many different people with many different personalities, interests, and opinions. And this is something that I actually do find beautiful, that so many different people from different walks of life can all come together in their love for anime. It's what happens when they do get into a room with each other where things don't always go as amicably as they should. In other words, opinions and personalities clash, arguments and hatred spread, and both parties end up leaving with a bad taste in their mouth. And this brings us to the crux of this entire video. Is it possible for a fandom to ruin an anime? I've been on the internet for a while now, and this is a sentiment that I've seen a lot. That regardless of the quality of a piece of media, people don't want to associate themselves with that media because of the fans and culture that have developed around it. And it's not like I don't get it. I mean, I used to have this mindset for certain shows when I was younger as well. I think naturally our brains just begin to associate the negative things we see that surround a show with the show itself. And therefore, our brains tell us not to indulge in that thing. Oh, but I hear you asking, dear viewer, what horrible things is it that anime fandoms do that make people not want to involve themselves in those anime? And the first and obvious answer is that certain fans can just be very toxic. Like, duh, right? Oh, the reason this thing is bad is because it has bad people in it. Yeah, thanks, Captain Obvious. Here, how about an example? JJK. Okay, look, I know this is a generalization. The idea that all JJK fans are unhinged and vengeful individuals. And that's obviously not true. There's always going to be bad apples in every fandom that in turn kind of damage the reputation of that fandom. Like, look at when Gojo died. Why? Why? When this happened, people were not happy about it. And of course, we're very critical of the direction the manga story was going in. Now, I want to go ahead and clarify, there is nothing toxic about being critical of a piece of art or even having very strong feelings in your dislike of it. There is no such thing as a perfect anime. Except for Frieren, but that goes without saying. If you go to a steakhouse and the chef plops a smelly, dying possum on your plate, you're not gonna be like, well, I mean, it's not that bad, you know, I mean, he tried. No, you're gonna complain. However, I do feel like there should be a line drawn at, oh, I don't know, physical threats. For example, and hot take here, I know, I don't think we should be wishing harm on the author. Like, you can be upset about his writing, call him a hack, all that stuff, but to threaten him? It's a manga. Like, come on, guys. And I know I'm not alone in this sentiment. A lot of fans, even the ones who didn't love the plot revelations, were not happy seeing all these threats towards Gege on their timeline, even if they were made as a joke. Of course, you also have the opposite end of the spectrum, the people who are so in love with an anime that they will constantly compare it to other shows just to boast about its superiority. I think the anime that I've seen people do this with the most is probably One Piece. Like, with every new arc, it feels like there's some new discourse about how certain One Piece fans are dogging on shows like Dragon Ball or Naruto just to place One Piece up on a pedestal. And like, you can do whatever you want, you know, I'm not your mom. But One Piece is not only the most successful manga ever made, but possibly even the most successful comic book, period. I just don't really get why some fans feel as though they need to validate One Piece like this. Like, people already like One Piece. You've won. You're the winner. I also think it's kind of funny when people say stuff like, oh, Gear 5 is now as iconic as Super Saiyan. Like, okay, when you have to get across how iconic something is by comparing it to another iconic thing, to me, that just tells me this is probably more iconic because people don't have to compare this to anything. When people first saw Goku turn Super Saiyan in 1991, they probably weren't thinking, wow, this is officially as iconic as Kenshiro's pressure point attack. No, they just saw it and thought it was cool, and it naturally became iconic. That's not to say Gear 5 isn't iconic. I just think these constant comparisons are kind of corny, man. So obviously, every fandom is going to have toxic people within it, whether they're critical of that anime or even really positive about it. But let's dive deeper, shall we? Actually getting into more specific aspects of fandom. It's here that we see another discourse that people regularly accuse of ruining anime, and that discourse is the shippers. It's only natural for any anime fandom to have its shippers. I mean, it goes hand in hand at this point, like peanut butter and jelly. Though, according to who you might ask, it might be closer to orange juice and toothpaste. During my time on the internet, I've noticed that a good number of people tend to take umbrage with shippers, and it seems to boil down to a few things. A lot of shippers typically operate on their headcanon pairings, and a lot of the times, these pairings are far from what are presented in the actual source material. In some instances, people might even interpret characters as having completely different sexual orientations altogether. In particular, this is very popular in the My Hero Academia fandom. And My Hero fans who prefer the canon are oftentimes bombarded with shippers posting about their fantasized character pairings. And sometimes they feel it's hard to enjoy being a part of the online community without having these ships relentlessly fed to their timelines. And this can come in many forms: fan art, fan fiction, and roleplay, just to name a few. And I just want to make it clear, I personally don't have any issue with this. Make all your headcanons, make all the fan art you want, ship whoever you see fit. It really is not that deep. However, I do feel like there are circumstances where shipping does cross the line. Namely, when either A, you harass and demean others for not following your own established headcanon, B, you constantly beg the author to make your ship's canon and proceed to threaten him when he doesn't, and C, you begin to believe so vigorously that your headcanon is true that when it turns out it's not, you have a full-on breakdown. Look, I'm trying to be nice here, but I really do think that if you were straight up expecting Deku and Bakugo to be in a relationship at the end of My Hero, all I have to say is,
congratulations, you played yourself.
Again, I don't have an issue with shippers. If you like the thought of two characters kissing and making art of it, so long as you're being respectful and not forcing on others, then you're fine. That being said, I do think this presents us with a broader topic, and that a lot of people think of fandom ruins in anime not even necessarily because of hateful or negative individuals, but because they think certain people in that fandom are just cringe. If you need an example of this, look at certain fans in the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure fandom. It's kind of a stereotype at this point that JoJo fans are basically incapable of not associating everything with JoJo. Like, everything has to be a JoJo reference, you know? Of course, not saying it's every JoJo fan, but it does happen. And honestly, I get it, because I've been there. When you do nothing but eat, breathe, and sleep a certain anime. I've liked anime since I was little. When I was in kindergarten, I wore goggles on my head to school because I loved Digimon so much. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, but you were just a little kid. That's so cute. That's not cringe. Okay, well, I was also that weird kid in middle school who Naruto ran through the halls. Okay, well, I mean, a lot of people did that. That's not so bad. Okay, well, how about high school, where I had a legitimate conversation with my mom's hairstylist about dyeing my hair to look like Death the Kid. My point is, I did all the things that a cringy anime fan would, so I get it. I think that in general, there's kind of been a stigma against otaku culture, notably because how it's usually presented in popular media, anime included. And yes, there are incredibly socially awkward anime fans, no doubt there, but I feel like a lot of this comes from passion. And a lot of that passion is probably there because anime helps make people feel like they belong in something. I think there's a lot of people who watch anime that have been rejected by those around them, and they view it as an outlet. That being said, while I feel like everyone is kind of cringy in their own way, I still do think that it's important for people to, you know, be socially aware of themselves and other people. You know, like, sometimes shame does go a long way. Like, obviously, enjoy what you enjoy, but you do need to be aware of when you're in public and when you might be making people uncomfortable. Again, let's circle back around to My Hero Academia. Justin Briner, Deku's English voice actor, just this year had to make a post on Twitter kindly requesting people to stop asking him about character shipping at his panels. And I get it's easy to assume that a voice actor is as invested in the fandom as you are, and sometimes that is the case, but this is also these people's jobs. They just don't share the same headspace as you do. And I just feel like when you're interacting with other people in a public space, you really need to read the room. But this isn't a social etiquette class, so I guess I'll just cut to the chase. Is it possible for a fandom to ruin an anime? As we've seen, fandoms can be very complicated, volatile, aggressive, and toxic. With all that in mind, nah, I really don't think so. When I watch an anime, I judge it based off its own merits, what's in the anime itself. I don't look at the culture or people that revolve around that anime, because they're an outside element. Obviously, you can deem the quality of something based on any factor that you want, but I personally think it's a little unfair to deem any anime a lost cause just because you don't like certain people that watch that anime. I'm sure there's tons of people who I probably wouldn't like that watch shows that I love, like Full Metal Alchemist, Frieren, or Gurren Lagann. But I don't allow these people to have power over my thoughts and ability to enjoy something. At the end of the day, I just like watching anime, and that's how I'll always judge it, by simply watching it. No more, no less.